Now that the regular season's only about 3 weeks away, let's look at some Atlanta Braves who are kind of on their last opportunities. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today for Thursday, March 6th, your source of news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby. You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Crosby Baseball. You can follow the show on Twitter, Braves_today. We have a Facebook page and an Instagram as well. And you can find all of my written work, bravestoday.com. That's the Braves Today Substack, as this is both a podcast and a newsletter. And we are somehow 3 weeks away from opening day. March 27th is Atlanta's season opener. They're on the road in San Diego. They've got 4 against the Padres, 3 against the Dodgers, and then they come home on April 4th for the home opener versus the Marlins. They'll then take on the Phillies before making another road trip. And we've gone through a lot of the position battles, right? We've talked a lot about who's going to be in the rotation. We've talked a lot about the bullpen, right? The configuration of like backup spots and things like that. But what we haven't really done is talked about some of the guys who really needed to have a good spring training. Guys who really needed to find a way to make an impact, whether it was offensively, on the mound, defensively, whatever it was, because they're at a pivotal turning point in their tenure with the Braves this season. So I want to talk about some of the utility man Luke Williams. I want to talk about Jarred Kelenic. But we're going to start off with starting pitcher Bryce Elder. And I want to clarify that I'm not saying that Bryce Elder is about to lose his job, right? He's not going to get DFA'd. He's not going to get nothing like that. But this was a pivotal offseason, and this upcoming season is very important for Bryce Elder simply because he is in danger of getting passed by other options in Atlanta. Bryce Elder went from an all-star selection in 2023 to a guy that, from an all-star selection in 2023 to a guy that they really didn't trust at the major league level last season, right? And so let's talk about Bryce Elder. What does he need to do? What are they looking for? And what happens for him now? And I think the main issue for Bryce Elder, like we all remember that 2023 season, he was an all-star and he looked very good in the first half of the season. 106 innings across 18 starts. He went 7-2 with a 2.97 ERA. And even that first half ERA is a little bit skewed, maybe higher than it really was, because he struggled in his last start before the All-Star break, which in retrospect ended up being a giant red flag, right? July 9th against the Rays, he goes 3 1/3 with 7 runs on 6 hits. It was arguably the third or fourth kind of real blow up he had in the first half of the season. 2 of them came in June, and then that came in July. And then coming out of the All-Star break against Arizona, he only made it 2 2/3 with 7 hits, 7 runs, 5 earned. Walked 5 amongst those 2 starts. He walked 5 in 6 innings. Second half of that season, he was not very good, right? Bryce Elder, 68 2/3 innings. Should have gotten one more out. 5-2 with a 5.11 ERA. Now, because he pitched so much more in the first half, right? He was able to salvage his full season numbers. He finished with a 3.81 ERA and a 12-4 record in 31 starts, 174 2/3 innings. Snit talked about this. Elder talked about this. He was a little bit gassed at the end of that year. He just was out of gas. It was the longest season of his life. And he had made a start in Gwinnett first. So he pitched 180 2/3 innings in the regular season. when his previous high in 2022 was 155, I think. A reasonable jump, but one that ended up being a little too much for him. And Bryce Elder went into the offseason of 2023 resolving to get stronger, build more stamina, and do better. And what we saw in 2024 wasn't that. He made 17 starts in Gwinnett, 3.73 ERA, 101 innings, but he made 10 starts in Atlanta. 10 starts, and he only had 49 2/3 innings. Because obviously, that's less than that's less than an average of 5 innings per outing. And his ERA in Atlanta last year was a 6.52. Let's talk about what happened to Bryce Elder, because I noticed a couple trends last year, and it looks like a lot of them have not yet been fixed in 2025 based on the 3 outings he's made in spring so far. And when you watched Bryce Elder last year, one of the things that stood out to me was his fastball velocity being improved. In 2023, his sinker, the average velocity on that sinker was 89.5. He didn't average 90 miles an hour with his primary fastball. He did average 90 with his four-seamer, but he threw that significantly less than he threw the sinker. It was like 13% four-seam usage at 90.8 miles an hour, 38% sinker usage at 89.5. And then his slider was 35% usage in the low 80s, like 82.5 or so was the average there. And the fastball wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. And everything else worked on him. He didn't give up a ton of barrels because his ground ball rate was really good. It was really a sinker slider combination, right? So he's a sinker ball, he's a ground ball guy. And he threw his changeup and four seam enough to keep guys honest. 14% changeup, 13% four seam. One of the big differences I noticed last year was better velocity across the board. Okay. Bryce Elder last year in the majors averaged 90.2 on the sinker, 91.5 on the four-seamer, and the slider and changeup were both also harder than the previous year. The slider went up a full mile an hour, the changeup around the same, and around on the same usage. So really it was the slider and the fastballs that showed better velocity. The issue here with that is the slider locations got much worse. Okay. And throwing this, I don't know if this is just from throwing the slider harder. I don't know if this is a combination of the slider being thrown harder, trying to use it differently, or a grip change or something. But the slider in 2024 had less movement than in 2023. Specifically, it had 3 inches less drop, which brought it down to about average. It was above average on drop. It brought it down to just average drop. And it already had below average horizontal movement. All of his stuff has below average horizontal movement, but he was getting more vertical than a lot of other pitchers are. That slider, like everything, had less movement last year, but the slider specifically had less movement. And so the 8 home runs that he gave up last year, 2 of them came on the four-seamers. Those were both like elevated edge of the zone, probably good pieces of hitting, but really you'd probably want to elevate the four-seamer above the zone versus top of the zone. 2 of them were on sinkers that were just absolutely hung. One was in the top quarter of the zone. One was I've never seen a pitch more down the middle than this other sinker. But 4 of them were on sliders. And all 4 of them were sliders in the bottom third of the zone. And that pitch works best when you're able to drop it below the bat of a guy that's looking for a sinker low. And again, I don't know if Bryce Elder's slider hanging like that last year was a matter of extra velocity, making it move less. I don't know if that was a grip change, a usage change. Maybe he's trying to leave it in the zone but on the edges and it drifted back over the middle. I don't know. But so far in spring, while some of the inputs are okay, he's only allowed 2 runs in 7 innings, 3 walks, 7 strikeouts. The issue he has is he's still hanging a slider. He's still missing up with the sinker. And while it hasn't really doomed him yet in spring so far, it's in the context of a rotation that has Chris Sale, that has Ronaldo Lopez, that has Spencer Schwellenbach, is going to have Spencer Strider in a couple, we think probably a month or so, a month and a half, probably really from here. But it also has Grant Holmes and Ian Anderson and AJ Smith-Shawver all competing for the 2 final spots. And then in the minors, you've got Hurston Waldrop. You've got Reclamation Project and Davis Daniel. We don't know. You've got Drew Hackenberg. You've got Lucas Braun. A level behind them, probably in Double-A this year. You've got Giancarlos Lara. You've got Blake Burkhalter. When they get back from injury, you've got Owen Murphy and Cade Kuehler. You've got J.R. Ritchie. You've got Garrett Bowman. You've got all of these really impressive pitching prospects behind you. And this spring really felt like this was Bryce Elder's almost final opportunity to come up and seize a rotation role. He's not out of options. He has 2 option years left. So there's plenty of up and down. But really, 2024 felt like the opportunity he needed to do it. But 2025's looking like the last chance. And it looks, as of now, like Bryce Elder's not going to make the team out of spring. I feel pretty confident that barring 3 sudden injuries in the rotation, Bryce Elder's not going to make the rotation out of spring. But it really feels like this season is probably his last opportunity to show he can be a reliable MLB starter, even if he's a 5th starter. Just that he can be a reliable MLB starter, because right now, he's not. And yes, he had a 3.81 ERA in 2023, and he made a full season worth of starts, 174 2/3 innings. But he hasn't been able to repeat that statistical performance, that innings performance, or any sort of reliability like he had in the first half. And so this spring training and then this season is the last chance, I think, for Bryce Elder to prove it. Because if he doesn't, he's probably not ever going to be more than a spot starter, maybe a long man out of the pen when he's out of options. In just a minute, let's flip to the other side of the ball, to use football's term, and let's talk about an outfielder in Jarred Kelenic that has one last opportunity to show he's an everyday starter. We'll do that next, right here on Braves Today. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsay Crosby talking about the players in Braves camp that are really on their last opportunities to seize a major role in the future of this team. And Jarred Kelenic still has promise. He has shown flashes, both in Seattle and in Atlanta. He has shown flashes of being dominant. I'll remind you, Michael Harris went down with that hamstring injury. I want to say it was June 14th or 15th. And Jarred Kelenic stepped into both center field and leadoff. And across the next 15 games, he hit .350 with a .403 on base and a .633 slug. 5 homers, 8 runs, 11 RBI, and 2 stolen bases. Braves went 10-5 in that stretch. After those 15 games, and Kelenic admitted to the media, I think Justin Toscano, friend of the show, was the one who first tweeted that and wrote that story. He was dealing with some nagging injuries that accumulated over the course of his season. But at the end of that 15-game stretch, through the end of the year, he only played in 63 games. He hit .171 with a .237 on base and a .311 slug. He had 6 homers in the remaining 63 games that he played in, and was virtually benched by the month of September in favor of Ramon Laureano. But this year, the start of this year, is an opportunity for him to prove that the Mets were right to take him in the first round, that Seattle was right to ask for him as the main return in the deal for Robinson Cano, and that Atlanta was right to take on, $15 million or so in dead salary to acquire him with 4 or 5 years of control remaining from the Seattle Mariners last winter. And the thing for me, we've got to see here, there's 2 main improvements that we have to see. Okay. The first one is the approach. Okay. He had some bad luck last year. Like everybody on this team, the batted ball luck, right? His slugging, his expected batting average and slugging were all better than what he actually did. His weighted OBA versus his expected weighted OBA, he underperformed everything. A lot of Braves hitters did. But the approach was the main issue last season. And if you watch what he did, he started off the year aggressively hunting fastballs. And teams just weren't throwing them. They were throwing more breaking pitches, more off speed. When he went to leadoff, he fixed it. He really made an approach change when he went to leadoff. He started backing off of how much he was hitting fastballs and really started swinging more at both breaking pitches and off-speed pitches. He had that 2-week heater, and then he just stopped. He just stopped doing that. Now, it's not all Jarred Kelenic, right? Opposing pitchers adjusted, okay? He was swinging at breaking pitches a lot less after June because he was seeing less of them. But they didn't start throwing him more fastballs, right? They started throwing him more changeups. And he just never rebounded to being successful against fastballs, but he also wasn't succeeding against the soft stuff because he was just caught in the middle. And that's one of the reasons why I'm heartened by the fact that Tim Hires went to Wisconsin and met with Jarred Kelenic and spent time this offseason working with him. You'll remember one of Tim Hires' philosophies is he wants you to be aggressive at swinging at your pitch. Fastballs are Jarred Kelenic's pitch. He has 47 career homers. 18 of those are on four-seamers. No other individual pitch accounts for more than 6 of his home runs. Now, I understand that's a little bit flawed because he probably sees more fastballs than everything else, but it's not a factor of 3 over anything else. He's been the most successful at hitting home runs off of fastballs. In 2023, he hit .324 with a slugging of .556 off of fastballs. The approach, he needs to be aggressive at fastballs, and he needs to be better at watching breaking pitches out of the zone and adjusting to changeups and off-speed stuff. So that's the thing one he has to fix. Thing 2 for Jarred Kelenic is surprisingly the defense. And there's a very specific area here with which he has to get better. Alex Anthopoulos has talked about he likes Kelenic's fit as a backup center fielder. He's got a strong arm. He's got good speed. He's got good range. Last year, he was a -2 outs above average on defense. And when you look into what goes into that, half of that -2, so 1 out above average, negative on this, was on 1-star catches. MLB grades catches by the catch probability. The likelihood based on the ball's movement and where you're standing that you would catch that ball. A 1-star catch is a play with a 95% catch probability. And he lost one of his 2 OAA on not making 1-star catches. The other one was on every play from 2 to 5. Okay? And 5s, you're not expected to make those. 5s are I think 5% catch probability. but it looks to be his reads, right? Where he initially reads the ball off the bat and his first step is wrong. I found one against the Mets where he broke back instead of in. There was one against the Yankees where he misread it as he was getting towards the track, and I think it went over his head. Now, caveat of their road parks, right? Missing just a few 95% catch probability catches can really hurt your overall metrics. But the reads seem to be an issue. Part of me wonders how much of that is just adjusting to new positions in the middle of the season, right? Again, he moved from left field to center field day to day because of injury. And so some of this stuff is him figuring this out. The issue here is Atlanta now has 3 outfielders signed for the next 3 seasons that are not Jarred Kelenic, right? Michael Harris is signed, obviously a lot longer than that. Ronald Acuna Jr. is signed for the next 3 or 4 years. I think it's 4 after club options, maybe 5. And Jurickson Profar signed for 3 years. And so barring injury or one of those guys getting a day off or a DH day, there's not a lot of playing time for Jarred Kelenic. So he really needs, both in spring training, to look good. And then when the season starts and he gets, a month of everyday playtime, he needs to be doing well so that he can show the team, hey, I am a starting caliber outfielder that if you have as a 4th outfielder, you have the best outfield in baseball. And in 2026, if Marcell Ozuna's not here, or if he's not available to DH in 25, you can put Acuna over there, you can put Profar over there, and I can step in the field and you don't lose anything defensively or offensively. In spring so far, by the way, 5 games, he's 3 for 12, 1 run scored, 1 RBI. He has a double, a triple, and a homer. So all 3 of those hits are extra base hits. 2 walks to 2 strikeouts. Very small sample size. I feel okay about it so far. But he needs to have a very good start to 2025 because he's making $2.3 million in his first year of arbitration. He's a Super 2 player. He has 3 more years of arbitration after this season. If he bats .230 this year and next year, is Atlanta gonna, with the way that all of these contracts are increasing, is Atlanta going to want to pay $5-6 million as for a 4th outfielder in 2 or 3 years? I don't think it's a guarantee they will. They probably will. But if they can find a prospect to do it for cheaper, they might not keep Jarred Kelenic around. They might move him in a trade, include him in some sort of deal. He definitely needs to have a good 2025, a good rest of spring, and a start to his season. In just a second, it might already be too late for Luke Williams. Let's talk about that next, right here on Braves Today. Final segment of Braves Today, Lindsay Crosby talking about the guys who really need to have a good spring training and 2025 season. And I'm worried that Luke Williams it's already too late for this guy, okay? He has been the utility man on the roster. Pretty much he's been the utility man the last couple years, right? He can play infield, he can play outfield. I think in his time in Atlanta, we've seen him play, I want to say, almost every single position, right? I know for a fact we've seen him at all 4 infield spots. I'm trying to pull it up right now. We've seen him play left. We've seen him pitch 4 innings. I'm like, he's played short. He's played third. He's played second. He's played first. He probably is your emergency catcher if you need one, honestly. He's probably your third emergency 2 guys get hurt in a game catcher. But he is in the battle of his life right now. Eli White, we talked about this last week when we talked about the buckets everybody's in. Eli White is working as a utility man. So he's played infield, including shortstop. He's already considered by Alex Anthopoulos to be a Gold Glove caliber outfielder. And so Luke Williams, who is out of options, to me is losing this battle right now. Eli White in spring, 5 for 9 with a run scored, 1 walk to 1 strikeout. Luke Williams, 1 for 15. He does have a home run, though. 1 RBI, 1 walk to 4 strikeouts. He also stole a base. The issue that Luke Williams has, I think, is he's not considered the best at any of the things that he does. He's not the best defender. He's not the fastest player. He's not Atlanta's first choice for a pinch runner. He's not Atlanta's first choice if you need a defensive replacement. His utility, to accidentally make a pun, is a utility man. He can step in anywhere on the field to finish a game for you, and it's not the worst case in the world. If you have an injury after game 2 of a series and you have a getaway day in the morning, he can step in and play first base for a day or third base for a day, and it doesn't kill you. But the issue is, right now, Eli White is doing all of those things he's doing that Luke Williams is doing better, right? Eli White is a better defender in the outfield. Again, Anthopoulos thinks he's Gold Glove caliber. And it wasn't just this spring he said that. He said that in the past before, too. He's faster. He's the preferred pinch running option, not Luke Williams. He defensively has looked to be pretty decent in the infield. I don't think he's an everyday starter caliber defender, but he's made some flashier plays than Luke Williams has made. And Luke Williams has been DFA'd 4 times in his career. This might be number 5 coming up. He doesn't have any options. There's no way, and we've DFA'd him before, and nobody claimed him, and we signed him back and put him in Gwinnett, and then called him back up later. I think Luke Williams, it may already be too late for him. I think this is a scenario where the only way he makes the opening day roster is if Eli White, instead of winning the utility job that Williams has had the last couple seasons, that Eli White wins the backup outfielder job over Brian De La Cruz, or technically some of these other guys who I don't really think are in it, like Carlos Rodriguez or Jake Marisnick or whatever. And then that leaves the utility job open for Luke Williams. If Eli White doesn't win the backup outfield job, I think Eli White wins the utility job and Luke Williams is gone. Now, does that matter? I don't know. Luke Williams has not been a significant part of the Atlanta Braves in the last few seasons. He put up 0.2 WAR last year, which brought his career total to negative 0.1. He had negative 0.2 WAR in 2023 for the Braves, according to Baseball Reference. So he is just barely positive, he's just barely negative for his entire career. Does it matter? I don't know if it does. But this is probably it for Luke Williams. He's got to have a great finish to his spring, or he's probably done. This has been Braves Today for Thursday, March 6th. You're listening on audio. Do us a favor, leave us a 5-star review. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell when we drop that next episode, and maybe also leave us a 5-star review with some words of affirmation. That would be great. Until next time, this has been Braves Today.